Hello, 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 and welcome to the Stride Report podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zyland. How's it going, man?
Ben, there are two things in life that I deeply, deeply hate. One of them is traffic through Baltimore. The other is anything like having a meeting or a call, pretty much anything before like 10 o'clock in the morning. Um, And yet here I am with you doing this podcast because that's what it worked for both of our schedules. And I just want to say this because I think it exemplifies how much I love you and how much I love our audience and how much I'm willing to deeply sacrifice for this podcast.
I was going to go in a different direction with the open. I was like, one of these days, both of us will be healthy on a podcast, but we have not had that for forever. I
No,
feel like it's either you have your allergies going on or I'm sick because of the kids. And today it's me sick because of the kids. Next
again.
week, who knows? Yes, exactly. It's just been nonstop.
Yeah, it's a petri dish at your house,
Yeah.
which I'm sorry to hear about. But for the record, you sound great and everyone loves a deep voice on the podcast. So we'll take it.
Yeah, morning plus a little bit under the weather. This is about as deep as my voice is going to go. So if you want any deeper, it's just not going to happen. Sorry, guys.
Do we have any ratings and reviews?
We did not. We are stuck at 113 and 204 on Apple and Spotify, respectively. After a really nice couple weeks, it's all right. We'll give you guys a pass this week. Next week, though, we expect to see those numbers pump it back up.
Yeah, I get it. End of season, things happen. I think people were upset that we changed the name from Blue Oval to the Stride Report podcast. So I get it, but otherwise, understandable. But Ben, we are going to wrap up the outdoor track season today with our classic trimestral, if that's even a word. I think it is. End of season awards for the outdoor track season, Division One. And what these are is that we have 5 different awards, 5 for the men, 5 for the women, that kind of review the outdoor track season as a whole for distance runners. We have minimum 4 nominees, maximum 9 nominees per each award. And the award categories are best freshman, most improved, best performance, best distance coach, and most valuable runner award. And we'll kind of go through, we'll list off who those nominees are. We'll talk about what the criteria is. And then, of course, you and I will go back and forth. We'll chat about it. On the site, I believe we had, 5 total voters? Yes?
No, we had 6.
6. That's right. I forgot 6. So we have 6 total voters this year, which means there was a handful that were unanimous, but I think less so than most years than if we had just 4 or 5. So
Right. Yep, absolutely. So with that said, let's start with the best freshman of the year award or of the season award on the men's side. And again, this is for anyone who is coming in with freshman eligibility. So basically you have all 4 seasons or you have all 4 seasons coming in to this season remaining. So after this season you have 3 seasons of eligibility left. We are including international freshmen who, again, meet that criteria. So with that said, the nominees on the men's side are Ishmael Kipkuri of New Mexico, Jojo Jordan of Wake Forest, Brendan Herger of Michigan, Kototoi Kadali of Oregon, Dismas Lokira, Alabama, Joash Ruto of Iowa State, Jeffrey Kirwa, Louisville, Collins Kipnagok of Kentucky, and Matthew Kosgei of New Mexico. This one felt pretty easy, but there was a lot of, you look through, you have a NCAA record holder, you have someone who ran NCAA number 2 in the steeplechase, it was runner-up in that event, and then you have a host of other men who made it to the finals this outdoor season. It was a pretty strong category, and you had both domestic, international guys in here. I think a really well-rounded group of freshmen that are going to impact the NCAA for a long, long time. Still, with that said, I felt like my answer was pretty clear-cut. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's Ishmael Kipkiri. We don't need to dance around this one. The NCAA 10K champion, the guy who broke the NCAA 10K record, the guy who was consistently competitive with Haptem Samuel throughout the entire spring season. The guy was just awesome. He was really, excuse me, really, really good. And there's I don't really know that there's anything more to say. He was just the best long distance runner, the best distance runner in the NCAA this spring. I do have a question for you though. Let's say Haptem Samuel beats Ishmael Kipkiri,
Hmm,
and Kipkiri gets second in the 10K. It's still, I think, what, seventh in the 5K, right? And
right.
then let's say Jeffrey Kirwa of Louisville pulls off the steeplechase win. Does this vote look different?
I think so, probably. Yeah. I
So you're
think
saying
I
you're
think
saying that Kirwall wins it.
I do. I think you combine. So the factors right now, in Kip Kururi's favor is that he's a national title winner and a record holder, whereas Kirwa is second in both of those categories. Right, he's number two all time, and he was second in his event. If you flip those and they each have like a first and a second, essentially, then I think it becomes a lot more realistic to vote for Kirwa, and I think you would default to the person that had the national title.
Yeah, I think I I don't know if it would be a hunt like it'd be like a unanimous decision.
No, it wouldn't be. Yeah, yeah, I
No,
agree.
I think you because you kind of look at it, it's like, well, Ishmael Kipkiri did get second in the 10K, but he was also an All American again in the 5K, and he
Right.
has the NCAA record. Like, I think there's a little bit more variance there, but um, a lot of strong steeplechase representation. Kiprop Kipnigok of Kentucky, Matthew Cosby of New Mexico, Joash Ruto of Iowa State. Historically good year for the steeplechase on that end. Um, JoJo Jordan of Wake Forest and Brennan Herger of Michigan. Those were the two domestic names. Of the two domestic names, who are you taking?
I think probably Herger just because he made the final in a 1500, which is a pretty huge accomplishment. And not to say that whatever what JoJo Jordan did, I mean he was dynamic in multiple events. I mean Herger was great in the 8 and the 15. You would I think from a time perspective you would probably lean Jordan, but I think with Herger getting to the final and finishing ninth, I think ultimately I'm gonna put him as the top domestic guy.
Yeah, I because it's so hard because Herger's more of a 1500, 800 guy. Jordan's more of a 1500 5K guy. Jordan was a second faster in the 15, but Herger
Yep.
placed higher on the national stage. Um, it's a bit tough. That's a tough one. I don't know if there's a good answer there. I would want to say Herger, but there's a part of me that's like I think Jordan kind of actually gets that. So um, at the start of the season, before the 10K at the 10 happened, who did you think was going to win this award?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably I think still probably Kip Kurui.
Yeah,
I think he still would have been my favorite going into this season.
I agree. I agree. Okay, all right. We can move on. It's a pretty easy one. And this next one also going to be pretty easy. The nominees for Best Freshman Award women. Um, by the way, no eligibility extensions are included in this, so no red shirts, which means that when I say Veronica Hargrave of Indiana, she technically does not count despite her being listed. Apologies. But the nominees outside of Hargrave are Pamela Kosky of New Mexico, Deborah Chorono of Texas A&M, Leah Geruto of Oklahoma, Mary Chipnagedich of New Mexico, Brenda Chipchirchir of Auburn, Joy Knockout of West Virginia, Enep Chipkamoy of LSU, and Diana Cherotich of Oregon. This was an exceptionally hard field to put nine nominees together.
Yeah.
We had to cut off a handful of names. I think we had to cut off Rachel Forsyth from Michigan State. There were other
Jeez.
really accomplished top names, and Forsyth was contesting the 15 5K at the East Regionals. She advanced in the 5K. She ran 1530s. Like for her to not even be nominated. Now, admittedly, she would have been if Hargrave was. Oh, if we knew Hargrave was not redshirting. or it was not a red shirt, excuse me. But those are the nominees. The obvious one, and I'll say it for you: Pamela Kosgei, three NCAA top three all time marks, two NCAA titles. We don't need to go into that. She's dominant. She was the best one. It's not close. But if you had to choose a second one, who's the second?
Oof. I think it's Joy Knockout.
I think it's Joy
I
Knockout.
Yeah, this is, I mean, her ascension throughout this entire year has been spectacular. I mean, coming in, didn't know a ton about her. Obviously, finishes the cross country season on a high, but then I felt like had a similar kind of trajectory this outdoor season, whereas like, okay, she's gonna be good, right? But is she really going to be competing with the best in the country? Running 31-34, finishing third in the 10K. I think she exceeded expectations almost every time she stepped on the track. As you look at that overall resume, I think it's just better than anyone else in this group.
Three instances where she went under 33 minutes in the 10K. She was second at Raleigh Relays, running 32:21, losing only to Grace Hartman. She won the Big 12 10K title, again, 31-34 at the national meet to get third. She was just across the board great. Found success from the very start of the season, maintained it in the middle, and then capped it off. I agree. I think she was probably the second best name on this list. Um, what was the name that you were maybe most surprised to see on this list when the nominees came out?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, coming into the season, I think you
Sure.
could argue Marian Jepnagenic, based off of indoor performances and then just the way that she came on so strong. Um, Maybe Leah Geruto as well, but I mean, I feel like a lot of these names, like, it's not stunning, right? To see that they were on this list. They came in with such good pedigree, most of them, that and they showed flashes before this outdoor season of insane talent. It's not super surprising to see any of them in here, quite frankly.
For me, it would have been Deborah Chirona. Um,
Okay.
I mean, her indoor track season was like good. It's ran 4:38 in the mile
Yeah.
twice. Was a scorer between the mile and DMR at the SEC championships, but she wasn't doing anything special. And this she starts her season by running 2:09 over 800 meters, then
Yeah.
4:18 over 1,500 meters, then 10:02 in the steeple, 4:15, 9:9 in the 1,500. Then she runs 9:57 at Penn Relays in the steeple, 16:02 and 9:58 5K steeple, 9:42 at West Regionals, 9:36 in the steeple prelims at Nationals, 9:32 in the steeple prelims at Nationals to get fifth place All American honors. For me, like, I mean, fifth place All American honors in the steeplechase running 9:32 is a night and day difference from running 4:38 in the mile twice on the indoor oval. So
It's just so
um,
many races this
it's a
outdoor season
lot.
for
It's a
her. She
lot of
ran a lot.
races. Yeah.
Yeah.
So um, good for her, but that would have been the other name that I had for best freshman.
Yeah, I wish I could go into more depth on a lot of these names, but Brendan Shipchirchir, excellent, making it out of the East Regional in the 5K, 10K. Diana Cheritich, I feel like had the potential to be like the runner up in this event or in this award if she could have put together a better 10K at the national meet. Certainly showed flashes running 15:23, 31:45. The DNF though at the national meet I think really hurt her chances at finishing second in this award, but she had a fantastic season throughout this entire spring.
Agreed. Agreed. So we'll go on to most improved award. And what this is, and this is on the men's side, is that it
Yep.
evaluates the nationally competitive distance talents who are not expected to make the leaps in fitness that they did this past spring. Prior seasons are used as a loose comparison tool when attempting to list nominees. And nominees for this award do not include true freshmen or athletes who were in their first season, not necessarily of outdoor track, of collegiate competition. Performances past 6:14 do not count. And the nominees are Christian Jackson of Virginia Tech, Kirk Dawkins of Florida A&M, Samuel Navarro of Mississippi State, Martin Segrola of Indiana, Farron Kovacs of Harvard, Davis Helmerich of Arkansas, Yari Kadane of Wichita State, Valentin Soka of California Baptist, and Will Daly of Virginia. And this one was a bit different in terms of who
Yeah.
we voted for. This was a split between two names. Uh, Go ahead. You know what? Let's say who you voted for.
I had Martin Segura. Oh gosh, I'm
Sure.
horrible with names. Of Indiana, he put together again. The PRs weren't necessarily some of the best in this group. 339, 148. But I thought he really took a huge leap in terms of where he was on the national stage, qualifying for the finals. Again, I'm putting a lot of weight to qualifying for the finals in a lot of these awards in the 1500 on the men's side, just because of how deep that was. And you're running against guys that ran 333 and you're beating them, right? And so I think that is why I am really high on him. And I think he took a significant step forward from where he was before, not only in terms of time, but his ability to just race against the best in the country. Now, this is a little bit of a departure from me. Voting for this is usually I like to vote for the person that goes from good to great. This is more going from all right to very good. But I really liked what I saw out of him at the end of the season, and what he did at the national meet carried a lot of weight for me in this particular award.
Is it fair to say that Christian Jackson would have been like the prototypical Ben vote?
Yes. Yes, if he would have finished like a little bit higher up at nationals, that he's the very classic Ben vote.
Okay, fair enough. I voted for Samuel Navarro of Mississippi
Hmm.
State. Had run what one? I'm trying to figure out what had he had never run. He would run.
What do you run 150, 140? Yeah.
He had failed to break the 150 barrier for 800 meters in his first season with Mississippi State, and then steadily improved his marks, going from 149 to the 146 to 145.32 at the NCAA championships. Qualifying for the national meet for him was even just a stunner to begin with. Then he
Yeah.
makes the finals, runs 145.32, gets six in the 800-meter finals. For me, it was a pretty clear one. Segrola, I did look at him. I considered him for a moment, especially because advancing, like you said, to that 1500-meter final is incredible, really. But I did think it was interesting to try to kind of like like he wasn't super consistent, right? Like he didn't run under 340 the entirety of the season, right? He didn't have a great showing at Big Tens, right? He was last in that final in the
Mhm.
1500 meters, and for me, I was like, I just need a little bit more. And to me, Navarro just took the jump and was more successful in the postseason, so I took him. But I'll say this was not a just only Ben voted for Segrola and only me voted for Navarro. This was split, and so if you want to check out who won, who voted for who, go check out the site there. What other names did you want to chat about?
So I looked at Kovac of Harvard a little bit, but he came in with I think almost too good of a resume
Yeah.
coming into it, where it was like, all right, he certainly was better, but he didn't take a huge jump. Kirk Dawkins, I think is the type of guy that you've voted for in the
Yep.
past, where it's like you just the massive PR leap, right? In the 800, I think but wasn't someone that you're realistically expecting to compete for a final spot in the 800. Um, Valentina Soka, I feel like he's been like the most under the radar, like
Yeah.
elite
Yep.
athlete that we've had over the last season. I mean, what he did finishing fourth in the 5K, just putting his nose in it the entire time, looking like he certainly belongs after running 13:13 and 27:37 this year. I feel like he came in, you look at our predictions, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, he'll be an All-American, right? Like, and that was like as exciting as like any of us got on him, but he was awesome, and there really isn't a hole in his resume the entire year. He clearly took a big step forward.
Agreed. Agreed. My personal, I really liked Yard Kadane of Wichita State. That was the one name where I was like, I know I'm not going to vote for him, but um, part of me wanted to. So, okay, we're moving off of that for the men and the women. Most improved, we have Bahia El Arfui of Eastern Kentucky, Vera Sojberg of Boston U, Ava Mitchell of Northern Arizona, Angelina Napoleon of NC State, Shelby Jensen of Utah State, Sydney Massarelli of North Carolina, and Sylvia Jalego of Clemson. Who'd you
So
have?
this one here, I felt like you could have gone a couple different places, but I think the national, especially going into the national meet, but I think uh, after the national meet, there was really only one answer, and that was Angelina Napoleon. I mean, the third place finish in 9:14 in the steeplechase was just miles better than anything she's done in the past. And I know we're not including performances after 6:14, but then she goes out and runs 9:10. Like it's she's clearly on a different planet than she was before. And her consistency, I think we mentioned this last week, has been elite. And that was something we were pretty nervous about for someone breaking out in this way, but she has run the steeplechase as consistently as anyone not named Lexi Holiday Lowry, Pamela Kosgei, and Doris Lemegel. When you're putting yourself in that kind of conversation after not even being like on the All American radar all that much, I think you deserve the most improved award.
Yeah, I think she was. I mean, she was clearly an All-American top half favorite. I mean, I
Well,
think
I
based on her
mean coming into
predictions.
the season, I
Okay,
think,
well, sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah,
Coming
yeah,
into the season,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's been, I mean, flat out phenomenal, right? Like
Yeah.
she's just been like 9, 10, and again, I know we're not voting past, the June 14th, but like, man, she runs 9, 10, and I was like, okay, maybe she goes to Paris and she gets a second or two PR, right? Like
Right.
maybe, and then she runs 9, 10, which is just crazy to me, but. She was just the best one. Like she went from being like, "Oh, I'm just happy to be at the national meet as a freshman,"
Yep.
to a historically dominant steeplechaser. Now that said, I do think there were arguments to be made for like Bahia El Arfrui. Like
Hmm.
she ended her 2024 outdoor track season with 426 for 1500 meters and 211 for 800 meters. She's since run 405 for 1500 meters and 201 for 800 meters. She advanced to the 1500 meter to the national championships over 1500 meters. Did not advance out of the prelims, but still, like that was the one where I was like, man, am I really not gonna vote for her? And it was hard. I almost did.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with a 20 plus second PR in the 1500 and a 10-second PR in the 800. And it's rare that you get that to like 201 and 405, right? So you'll see that sometimes where someone goes from 440 to 420, right? And that's a jump that you'll see a lot more frequently. The fact that she went from, again, strong PRs to unbelievable ones is again probably hits both of our criteria, right? In terms of huge PR jumps and putting herself at the very top of the NCAA picture. Elsewhere, I mean, Sylvia Jalego of Clemson, I thought ran terrific as
Yep.
well this year. I think obviously not qualifying for finals in the 15, but coming back and running, finishing ninth in the 5K, I think just showcased her overall talent and versatility. I thought and I think her tactical acumen seemed to grow throughout the season as well.
Yep. I agree.
It's still some room to grow, but I thought she made some strong improvements there as well as improving in her overall fitness.
Yeah, not only that, but like she had run during the indoor track season 205 for 800 meters, 435 for the mile, 916 for 3K. It's very clear that she was fine on the indoor oval, but like it's clear that her comfort on the outdoor oval was far and beyond. And you run 405 for 1527 in the 5K. Fun fact: both of her PRs from the indoor track season and her 1500 5K PR from this past spring, they both came each at the same meet. So
That's
like there
funny.
was two indoor PRs came at the indoor championships, or no, at the Tiger Paw Classic, and then both of her PRs in the spring came at East Regionals. So yeah, fun little tidbit.
Yeah, impressive. Anybody else on this list that you wanted to touch on?
Uh, Angelina Napoleon was not the consensus vote. There was one deviation. I will not say who, but I will let that be for the time being.
All right, let's move on to best performance award on the men's side. So you have to have run attached during the race that we are talking about. It has to be just one race. It can't be multiple races over a certain time frame. We can include DMR splits. Our criteria here, again, it can be the most impressive, the most entertaining, or the most surprising. So this is a pretty open-ended award in terms of what you value, right? You could go in a couple different directions depending on what you think deserves the moniker of best performance. So with that said, on the men's side, we had Ishmael Kipkuri runs NCAA 10K record of 26:50 at the 10. Halftim Samuel runs NCAA outdoor 5K record of 13:05 at the Brian Clay Invite. Dylan Schubert fends off Ernest Chariot to win 10K at the Brian Clay Invite. Jeffrey Kirwa runs 8:13 for an NCAA number 2 all-time mark at the Brian Clay Invite. Nathan Green outkicks field to win Penn Relay's 4x mile title. Nathan Green outkicks field to win NCAA 1500 meter title. James Corrigan's big last lap gives him NCAA steeple title over Jeffrey Kurwa. And Ishmael Kipkuri kicks to win the NCAA 10K title. Where did you go with your vote here? I think we disagreed.
We disagreed, and in fact, there was actually three votes in total, three different nominees that were ultimately voted on. I went Ishmael Kipkuri, who ran the NCAA 10K record of 26:50 at the 10. Um, I think when Nico Young ran that record last year, we were like, okay, well, that's unbelievably impressive. First collegian to ever dip under 27 minutes. That's a historic time. It's not just an NCAA record. It's monumental.
Yep.
That mark is probably not going to be touched for at least another decade.
Yeah.
And less than 365 days later, Ishmael Kipkuri comes in, outkicks and just dominates a field of really unbelievably talented men and takes home the win, breaks the record, does so with a great kick. Um, it was just the best performance. It just was in my eyes. I think, yeah, you know what? If we want to go most entertaining or most thrilling or the legacy implications, okay, fine. But just in terms of best distance talent, best performance, Kipkuri was my vote.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with voting for that. Again, that hits the most impressive, I think, part of
Yeah,
the criteria, right? Where you're running an NCAA record. Like they're really it's you're gonna struggle to find a more impressive result than running an NCAA record unless you're running that NCAA record at the national meet, which we'll
right.
talk about later on. But for me, I went Nathan Green out kicks field to win NCAA 1500 meter title. Again, might be my 1500 meter bias showing a little bit here, but this was arguably the most loaded field on the men's side, and it was a slow race. It had a lot of build up in the drama. You had multiple people that you thought could win this, and multiple like all time greats in this event based off of their times, based off of NCAA titles. And Nathan Green really cements his legacy as a 2-time 1500 meter champ and outkicks one of the better 1500 meter fields we've seen in recent memory. I thought it was not only impressive to beat that field, but I thought it was one of the more entertaining races that you'll see in an NCAA championship. And with the stakes, all those things put together earn my vote. But I honestly, I think all three performances that were voted on, I very could have seen myself voting for. Like I thought all of them were well deserved.
The other performance that was received at least one vote was Corrigan's big last lap gives him NCAA steeple title over Kierwa. I will not specify who won and who voted for who, but um, yeah, it's that one was a contentious one between our writers, and like my thing is that usually I just go straight up for most impressive. But if there was ever a time for me to vote for a performance that was going to be like legacy, entertaining, the build up thrill, it would have been the Nathan Green
Mhm.
1500. Although part of me was actually thinking about the Penn Relays, one of his as well.
Yeah, we're gonna remember that almost as much. I would imagine, and I think you could say the same thing about Corrigan, right? We could if Jeffrey Kirwa rips off a couple NCAA titles in a row, I think Corrigan's win in this and overall the time and all of it, I think could go down in the history books pretty favorably as well. So yeah,
Agreed.
I thought this was a really good group of nominees.
All right, we're going to the women's side here. We've got, and I'm scrolling through adjusting. Women's nominees for Best Performance Award. Pamela Kosgei outruns Grace Hartman en route to the NCAA 10K title. Roisin Willis pulls off upset to win the NCAA 800 meter title in 158. Pamela Kosgei runs NCAA number 2 all time 10K mark of 31:02 at the 10. Doris Lemegal smashes her own collegiate steeplechase record in 8:58 en route to the NCAA title. Pamela Kosgei runs NCAA number 2 all-time outdoor 5K mark of 14:52 at the Brian Clay Invite. Sophie O'Sullivan kicks in the 1500-meter finals to win her first ever NCAA title. This one's pretty easy, and I will say it for both of us. It's
Yeah.
Doris Lemmegal running 8:58 in the steeplechase to win her NCAA title. If you disagree, you're wrong.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
just not. It was arguably the most entertaining from what we were perceiving from a thrill aspect. It was without question the most impressive performance. It was legacy defining. The stakes were the biggest. The competition was the hardest. um, I mean, there's no argument.
If we put together a list of all-time performances in this, this very well could have won the award. So it's
Yeah,
absolutely going to win the award for this season. 858 is not something we really ever thought we were going to see on the collegiate level, and to do it at a in the national championship is, again, it's everything that you could want. It hits every single bit of our criteria. What was your number two
and
on this?
that was the one where I'm really struggling. Um, I I'd probably say Roisin Willis pulls off the
Yeah,
upset to win the 800-meter national title. I was between her and Pamela Kosgei running the 31:02 in the 10K for NCAA number 2 all time, but Willis ran a historically fast mark, ran the NCAA championship meet record 158.13 or 158.12. All the struggles that she had previously in her career, she comes back as now a two-time champion, upsets the field in a way of like big kick down the finishing stretch.
yeah.
It was just, I think there was a lot of different elements that came together for it to be a really great story, along with a really great race. And it also helped me look really good in our pre-race, you know, preview, our national meet preview, where I was like, hey, watch out for Roisin Willis. And so I'll take Willis as the runner-up.
Yeah, I think that's right. The time, the entertainment value. Yeah, I thought it was super fun to just watch, and you really had no idea who's going to win over that last 100 meters in the
No,
800, which was thrilling to watch. And yeah, the storyline, all of it was really strong. I think the storyline also is why like the Sophie O'Sullivan performance was really entertaining. Is it didn't come down to like a 100-meter kick, right? She really distanced herself early, but again, we in a field that we really didn't know who was going to win. For O'Sullivan to win as convincingly as she did, and to cap off her career this way, I thought was one of the more entertaining results as well. But the overall time and everything like that, I think you got to go with the Roisin Willis 158. That's I think the next best result in a national championship.
You ready to move on to best distance coach?
Yes, let's go there on the men's side. So again, we're looking at everything throughout the 2025 outdoor season, how well teams exceeded expectations. And on the men's side, we had Jerry Schumacher of Oregon, Dave Smith of Oklahoma State, Darren Gosson of New Mexico, Jeremy Sudbury of Iowa State, Chris Miltenberg of North Carolina, Kevin Sullivan, Michigan, Marcus O'Sullivan of Villanova, John Hayes of Wake Forest, Wendell McRaven, and Paul Ehring of Texas A&M. I forget where did you go with this? So do we agree on this one? Yeah, we did. All right.
Yeah, we
This
did. This
this
was
this this one
a
straightforward.
consensus, which I was surprised it was consensus, and that
Yeah.
was Darren Gosson. I get it, like Hatham Samuel, Ishmael Kipkiri, dominant 1-2 between the 10K and still highly productive in the 5K. Matthew Kosgei in the steeple. Um, but like those were like there were other teams that were deeper, right? And maybe
Yep.
not as top heavy or as productive at the top three, but um, now again, I still voted for Gosson,
Yeah.
but like this is what happens, right? Like you recruit really strong international stars from overseas, and you get great results. And I guess my question, like I ultimately come back to, excuse me, that I ultimately come back to is how is it that New Mexico, and we've had this conversation before, how is it that New Mexico and Gosson,
Yeah.
how is it that they're the ones getting all of these international stars, and yet Oregon has proven like, hey, we'll go after international names. And Alabama and Iowa State have proven all this, and plenty of Texas Tech, right? How is it that it's New Mexico that almost had pretty much all of its funding cut from its men's scholarships a few years ago during COVID to now where they're just they're winning out all of these recruits, and it's I'm just surprised that it's New Mexico of all.
Yeah, and I think that goes under Gossett. You have to put that as a feather in Gossett's cap, right? The fact that he came in after Joe Franklin left, you would have expected, hey, recruiting might not be as strong, and it's only gotten better. You think about the best international athletes that have come in over the last 2 or so years. He's probably got the two out of the best two out like the two out of the best three coming in before we even knew anything like about them on the NCAA stage, and that is Pelikoski, Haftam Samuel, and then I think Doris Levengold is the only one that they really didn't get right. And I mean, it's rare that you are able to get two type of athletes that come in and are like what top five names for us right from the get go, and I mean, super impressive, and he hasn't messed him up, right? And I
No,
think that is it might seem like a backhanded compliment, but that's not something you can take for granted, right? You have these athletes moving thousands of miles away in a completely different scenario than they've ever run in, and he not only made them just as good, he made them better. And I think that is certainly something that warrants this award.
who was your runner up in this case?
Man, there was a lot of good names in here. I felt like John Hayes is like a year away. I thought he had a good year. I think my runner up is probably Dave Smith. Um, just from overall depth, he got an NCAA champion. He handled the Brian Masau season perfectly.
Yep.
We couldn't have known that going into the NCAA meet, but I think he handled that very well. The Fawad Masaudi decision to moving to the 5K, maybe not the best, but he was an All-American, right? And I don't know if that was a guarantee in the 1500 meter either. Alex Stitt took some nice strides forward. Dennis Kipnigenich was great. Yeah, I think overall, you look at in the entirety of his resume, I think it's the second best out of this group.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Like I want to go to like look at Oregon's Jerry Schumacher, who had great success in the middle
Yeah,
distances, but you kind of fall off on the national stage in those longer distances, the 5K, 10K, despite the success that his crew had at Big Ten championships, right? John Hayes, I agree, they're like a year out. Um, Chris Miltenberg, Parker Wolf not being available in the postseason kind of hurt him a little
Yep.
bit. Jeremy Sudbury, the 800-meter crew just wasn't nearly as competitive as they were in the past. Um, so, yeah, I would probably go Dave Smith, Oklahoma State. I don't even think this was his best season. I just think this was,
No.
one of those years where I'm like, these were good nominees, but there were very few that were great. And so I like Dave Smith as the runner up. I agree.
Yep. No, I agree. Not the strongest. I think either on the women's men or women's side in terms of the best distance coach award. But let's go to the women's side where we had nominees of Shalane Flanagan of Oregon, Diljeet Taylor of BYU, Mike Smith, Northern Arizona, Marisha Powell of Washington, Darren Gosson, New Mexico, Lori Hennis of NC State, and Vicky Pounds of Clemson. So this one was a really hard one for me. I didn't love my choices here. I think I was in the minority here with going it with Shalane Flanagan. The NCAA performances were certainly not what you would have hoped for. But I think you look at the overall season, I think it was pretty strong. And when I'm looking at the rest of these results for a lot of these other names, it's not as if they had the most complete years either. I think you can make some strong arguments for Diljeet Taylor, Mauricio Powell, but I didn't love this group of nominees.
It's not the strongest. No, it's not the strongest group we've ever had. There were three different nominees who were ultimately voted on. We won't specify who. My vote was Mauricia Powell of Washington. I thought, you take a look at what she did with Sophie O'Sullivan,
Yep.
keeps her healthy and gets her to be a national champion, right? Chloe Forrester ends her season as an All American. And both of those women were great during the regular season as well, right? Which is, if with Washington, it's kind of one or the other. Usually it's just they're good in the regular season and kind of fall
Right.
off in the,
Yep.
in the postseason. But Maggie Liebeck, fantastic as well in the postseason. She ran 9:42, I want to say, in the steeplechase, and made it to the finals where she placed 10th overall. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm trying to even think. Julia David Smith made it to the national meet over 5,000 meters. I want to say that there's maybe like one or two other names who I'm not even thinking of off the
Amina
top of my head.
Matug,
Amina Matug was an All
Mia
American in the
Cochran.
5K. So like when you kind of go through all this, I'm like, in terms of like a collective whole, and in terms of what each of these women were able to bring to the table, the depth, the well-roundedness of this roster, for me, that was enough for me to say, like, you know what, give the nod to Mercy Powell. I thought from start to finish, she was the most complete distance coach in the country.
Yeah, and you might be right. I don't. Yeah, I don't love my choice. Looking at as we're talking it through, I think the highs were like the overall level that I think Oregon was at throughout the regular season was better, just in terms of you had three in the 1500 that I think were. I mean, I can't even say that because Forrester and O'Sullivan were great, but I think the Cheritich, if she puts together a better 10K
I
performance, I
agree.
think this is it's a little bit of a different conversation.
Well, I also think like if you're BYU and like it's like what happens if Carly Hansen or Riley Chamberlain, like what
Yeah,
if they're like
right.
what happens if they do well in the 1500-meter finals? It's a different story because then Megan Hunter of BYU gets third in the 800-meter finals, and Lexi Halliday Lowry runs what 9:08 in the steeplechase, right? And
Right.
she gets runner up, and maybe there's another performance in there in the 5K or the 10K that I missed. Jenna Hudgens getting 11th. Okay, so I mean Jenna Hudgens still had a really good regular season. Taylor Lovell, I think, had another really good steeplechase season. She was ninth in the finals at the national meet. So I think there's certainly an argument. Doji Taylor was the other name who was voted for. But if you want to go check out who won, go check out the site. Go check out the article.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our last award on the men's side, and that is the Most Valuable Runner Award. So again, you are looking at performances throughout this spring season for the best distance runner or the person that you felt like provided the most value throughout the season. The nominees here were Ishmael Kipkuri of New Mexico, Haptem Samuel of New Mexico, James Corrigan of BYU, Nathan Green of Washington, Brian Massau of Oklahoma State, Jeffrey Kirwa of Louisville, and Sam Whitmarsh of Texas A&M. And this one, I felt you could have gone in a couple different directions here. I ultimately landed with Kip Kurui on the back of his NCAA title and an NCAA record. I think if we had gone into NCAAs, he would have had a pretty strong argument for this award. But I think we all would have been a little skeptical of him winning it because I think we were all a little skeptical of him being able to win a national championship, right? The inexperience, all of that. With the NCAA title and an All American finish in the 5K, I think ultimately put him ahead of his teammate and any other contenders in this. But I'm not like this is the only answer. I think you would have been well justified with a couple of these other names.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the classic like best versus most value comes in.
Right.
So again, this is another award where I have three different nominees being voted for. You can go check out who won. You voted for Kip Curie. I voted for Samuel, and I was again on the fence about like Samuel versus Kip Curie, but I was looking at this from a sense of like if you wanted to like start a fantasy team, right, which we'd had,
Yep.
who would you vote for? And who would you take first? And you would take Samuel because Samuel was second in the 10K. He was second in the 5K. Not only that, but he was NCAA number 2 all time in the 10K with his performance at the very beginning of the season. Then he gets the NCAA outdoor 5K record in 13:05, which was bound to go down sooner or later.
Yeah.
So it's just enough of a complete season in total. He was, I think, I want to say the highest individual point scorer at the national meet. Is that true? I don't know if
I
that's,
mean, certainly on the distance side, I don't know the rest of the events, but it wouldn't be shocking. 16 points is hard to beat.
yeah. And so I'm looking at this, and in fact, even as I say this out loud, I think he was. Um, so yeah, I mean, you kind of go through and almost like he was not just the most productive at the national meet, and he didn't was not just the single heaviest point scorer, but he was also great throughout the entirety of this season. And for that reason, I went with Samuel.
Yeah, again, not going to argue with you on that. I think he is totally a defensible decision. I think the hard part for me is like Kip Curry beat him in like the two biggest races of the
Yeah.
season, and that was a hard hurdle for me to get over. I don't wouldn't have argued if anybody voted for Corrigan or Nathan Green. I think Corrigan, while he didn't have the best regular season, clearly took his time and worked his way up into perfect form in the steeplechase, beat one of the best steeplechasers we've ever seen in Jeffrey Kirwa. And Nathan Green, again, was fantastic throughout the season. I think the Penn Relays performance sticks out. Obviously, the NCAA championship. I think losing the Big Ten title probably hurts him
Yep.
a little bit
Yep.
in this discussion. But I think overall, he had a very compelling case as well.
Yeah. If he doesn't lose that Big Ten title, this is a little bit more of a conversation.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, especially because like not only that, but like he won Brian Clay. He
Yeah.
anchored both of those Penn relays
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
to wins. You know, he wins the national title, and it's all in a year of a historic year for the 1500 meters. There was it was not wrong to vote for him. I don't know if I would have quite argued in favor of Corrigan, but still phenomenal efforts by both of those men. So that's all I got for MVP.
All right. On the women's side for most valuable runner, we had Doris Lemongol of Alabama, Pamela Kosky, New Mexico, Grace Hartman of NC State, Sophie O'Sullivan of Washington, Margot Appleton of Virginia, Rasheen Willis of Stanford, Lexi Holiday Lowry of BYU. Now, this was an interesting one. This one definitely you had to pick your criteria here. You're going with best or most valuable because and this was in our fantasy draft. This was showcased pretty well, where you went with Lemon Goal as your number one overall pick. Again, never going to be a bad pick. Guaranteed 10 points. I went with Koski And obviously she comes home with 20 points. But what Lemon Gold did in terms of just the times, her overall dominance, I think it is hard for me to say that she is not deserving of this award, and I ultimately went with her because she clearly is the best runner in the NCAA. If she wanted to compete in more events, she could have won as many titles I think as she wanted to. She ends up just running the 3K steeple and cements herself as an all-time great with an 8:58 performance.
I see. This was not a unanimous vote.
No, and it
Um,
shouldn't have been, honestly. I think that's representative.
yeah, it was not. I was very close to voting for Pamela Koski.
Yeah.
Very close. And I had kind of made this argument when I said at the earlier in the season, like a month ago, and I
Yep.
said, Ben,
Yep.
what happens, if Koski wins both titles and Lemengall wins her steeple title or doesn't even win it or whatever? Like when you look at the best value and who was the most productive distance runner this season was not Lemengall. Like no matter what way you
No.
slice it,
Yep.
she was not the most productive. The most productive was Pamela Koski, who ran NCAA number 2 all time in the outdoor 5K, NCAA number 2 all time in the 10K, NCAA number 3 all time in the steeplechase, at least within season, right? And then she wins 2 titles, 10K and 5K. Whereas Lemengall was just strictly, refined for the steeple and steeple only. And was
Yep.
she the flat out most dominant? Yes. And it wasn't even close, right? 858
No.
performance. She runs 9:10 at the beginning of the season. She had at one point the 3 fastest steeple times in NCAA history, and that wasn't even with her 858. So, like, I'm with you. At some point, like, dominance just has to be respected,
Yep.
and she was the most valuable. But there is an argument for Koski. As wild as that may seem to say, Koski had an argument for the most valuable.
It would have felt wrong to remember this season not for Doris Lemon and I think that's ultimately why you vote for her. Where this was her season, even if Kozgi was maybe more well rounded and more valuable from a points perspective. Like this was Doris Lemon year, and I think that's why you have to give her this award.
Real quick before we move
Yeah.
on, who was your third? Who was bronze in your picking for this
Oh,
award?
that's a good question. Oh, this is tough. I think it's probably Lexi Holiday Lowry
Yep,
because I just think she was the third best runner in the country. And I mean, 9:08 NCAA number 2 time in the steeplechase. I think it probably has to be her.
I agree. Not only that, but like she was second to what may be the single greatest
Right.
performance we've ever seen by a distance runner collegiately ever. And she also ran 1450, 1453 in
Yeah.
the outdoor 5K, right? Like she was just flat out awesome. And like, yes, she did not run well at Big 12s, but like, all right, cut her some slack a little bit here. I mean, she was just flat out great. And so I agree. It's Halliday Lowry as my third. But I think that's it, though.
So yeah, that wraps it up for the end of season awards. A fantastic year again. So many great performances across the board, and yeah, I think this will be one for us to remember. Now we got plenty of transfer stuff to get to. We'll get to that in the coming weeks, where we have this NCAA settlement to talk about. We're going to have so much to talk about this summer. There's going to be coaching news. We don't know who, but this is always the coaching carousel time of the year. We're going to start to get into some too early rankings, I'm sure, for cross country at some point. So, as Garrett said last week, this is one of our busiest times of the year, even
Yeah.
without any races going on. And that's because the cycle never stops. There's
No.
news all the time, and we have what I think is both of our favorite season that is on the horizon, and that is cross country. So much to talk about there. I have ideas for some more fantasy drafts, so get ready for that. But yeah, I think that's all we got on this episode. Anything else here, Garrett?
No, like Ben said, so much coming up. We're gonna even have, there's, knock on wood, maybe even have some coverage of world championships, at least some photos. So
Ooh.
yeah, I know, maybe, knock on wood, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, like Ben said, ton is coming your way. I think we're gonna do way too early cross country previews at the beginning of July, somewhere around there. So maybe another week or two, dare I say 3, but yeah, a lot of great stuff coming up. So go check out the site. Already ton of transfer stuff. Go check out our thestridereport.com/transfers to go check out all of the transfers that we're tracking. We also have some news around the NCAA that we've been posting as of late. But Ben, for now, that is all.
All right, Garrett. Well, until next week, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.